All over the country, more and more communities are making the change to biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil, and the decision continues improving the health and welfare for millions of Americans while adding billions to our national economy.
This segment is brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Welcome back to Farm Factor and the Kansas Soybean Update.
This is the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Dr. Terry Griffin, cropping systems economist at Kansas State University. And Dr. Griffin, living in rural areas means continued struggles concerning connectivity, broadband availability, and big data, especially for those involved in agriculture. What do you see as some of the underlying issues?
There's several underlying issues when it comes to wireless broadband connectivity in rural areas. One of the leading ones is just a lack of hard wires going out to the rural areas, whether it's for hospitals, public schools, and different communities will need fiber or wires going to those areas. And once that's established, that doesn't mean that we're going to have wireless connectivity in those areas, and especially farms, because that will require wireless providers. So that's been one of the limiting factors we've seen in rural areas, is that we can't just put a wireless tower in the middle of nowhere without a wire, because that's equivalent to buying an ice machine without hooking it up to water.
If you have some in that area, is there still a significant gap between upload speeds and download speeds that we see in rural areas?
There is, and not just rural areas, but also in urban areas as well, because internet service providers calibrate the upload and download speeds in favor of download, because most people in residential areas do more download than upload. For instance, think about what you do at home. You're streaming video and looking at content on the internet. In agriculture, especially in the field, we are collecting data from sensors, from lots of different farm equipment, and pushing it up. And so we download very, very little, and the files that we do download in the field are relatively small, but we're trying to push some relatively large files up to the cloud. And so in agriculture, if we had to choose between upload and download speeds, I would choose faster upload speeds than download.
And is the technology getting better to where we can solve some of these things in the future?
Yes and no. You've been hearing about 5G replacing 4G. It's much faster. Although it's faster, it has a shorter distance that it's viable. So if you think about the wireless routers that you have in your home, many of the newer ones will have a 5G option. And so my router is in my basement. It works pretty good. And so it sends out a 5G and a regular connection. My 5G does not work always upstairs or in the backyard, but my regular connection does. The regular connection is much slower, but it has a longer distance. The technology is getting better and faster, but the range from the towers may be getting smaller.
That is Dr. Terry Griffin, cropping systems economist at Kansas State University, who joins us on the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Learn more at kansassoybeans.org. For Kansas Soybeans, I'm Greg Akagi.
Hope you enjoyed this week's Kansas Soybean Update. Stay with us after the break for more with Dwayne Taves and Elmer Runnebaugh with Kansas Rural Water Association.
What if U.S. soybean oil were an industry sensation? If end users started asking for it by name? That future is here. The time is now. To meet customer demands, the Soybean Checkoff is investing in varieties that produce oil with increased functionality. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns, and how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil.